Next talk will be AWS Identity Center extending Cloudsplaining to score users and permission sets risk by Rodrigo Montoro. Quick shout out to our sponsor, Wiz. Wiz secures everything organizations build and run in the cloud. Wiz enables hundreds of organizations worldwide, including 20% of the Fortune 500, to rapidly identify and remove critical risks in cloud environments. Its customers include Salesforce, BMW, Slack, Priceline, Rubrik, SalesLoft, Plaid, DocuSign, among others. As a reminder, we'll be taking questions after the talk is done. Take it away, Rodrigo.
All right, test. Okay, you hear me? Okay. All right, first, thanks for Cloudsec for having me here. Like, for me, it's the best conference in the whole year. Like, last year I was in Boston, and this year I'm here. I'm really excited to speak. I'm not a morning guy, especially in English, so I'll try my best. And we're going to talk about AWS Identity Center extending Cloudsplaining to score user and permission risk. I think the result is pretty interesting and scary at the same time. And I'm Rodrigo Montoro. I'm head of threat and detection research at Clavis Security. It's a company in Brazil. I live in Brazil. I live in Florianópolis. Florianópolis is an island in south of Brazil. You definitely should visit Florianópolis, especially if you're making money in dollars or euros. Like you have a visit as like a boss, especially because like it's 5 times our current currency. So I have 2 patents. I used to speak in a bunch of different conferences. Technical stuff, and when I'm not on the computer, that's not a lot of time. I'm with my son and my dad, and I'm a dad. I used to do triathlon. Currently, I could not even run a mile. Look at my size, and I currently try to do some lifting stuff. And the motivation behind this research was the very first one was like the over-permissive access, right? This is from SysDig, and so 9% of the permissions that you give to users, they don't use. So that was the first motivation when we start to look at IAM. The second part was I did a presentation that Sans Cloudsec Next. That's the base of this presentation, and so I did an extension. And the result was pretty cool here, and it got like the top 10 summit talks there. I don't know what Eric and Ken is doing. What's wrong with Sans, guys? and the result was pretty cool. And so I thought like, well, I think it's time. Maybe I need to extend that to Identity Center. And that's what I tried. And so the motivation was, I'm terrible with the marketing stuff. So we have users, right? And so users they have groups at Identity Center. And so we have the permission set that will give me access to 1 or more accounts, right? And so everything is connected like in different paths, different ways. It's pretty complex when you try to build something to see that. It's not easy. And by the end of the day, like the problem about the permission and the access and what I could do with some user is here, right? It's here, right? It's the permissions, like by the end it's policy. And so, okay, I have this first research that I focus on policy. So what I need to do from here, I need to add like the connections between the policy, the users, and other things to make sure like from this user using maybe this group, this permission set with this policy, I have access to this account and access to my asset. And I created an agenda here, so I will do a brief introduction about my previous research. If you want to see the full presentation, go to Sans Cloudsec Next. The presentation is there with all the details. Adding the Identity Center to the flow, so from there, like I start to add, and an extra mile that I try to add here using some cool stuff. So my research was based on Cloudsplaining. Cloudsplaining was created by Kennard McQuaid. And the main goal about Cloudsplaining is identify least privilege violations. And those violations, it's split in finds, that's privilege escalation, that's filtration, infrastructure modification, credential exposure, and resource exposure. Who knows Cloudsplaining here? Oh, that's cool. That's easier. And when you have the output, that's a HTML output. You have the risk and the severity, and this is things I use it a lot in my previous research. And besides the HTML, we have the JSON file where I do my scoring stuff and my risk stuff. And what you have from here, we check like based on this, right? And if you have like some policy that has higher risk, medium risk, and low risk, we have priority 1, and so to 8 based on that, and we add some score here. And about the second part is like we have the risk, the impact, and different number of actions related. So we have less privilege escalation action than the infrastructure modification. I need to update these numbers. And so we do some math with the number of actions and some weight for each find. And we have something like this by the end. We have the action score that will multiply this, and the risk score will have a number here, right? So if you want more details, as I mentioned, you could go to the Sun's Cloudsec Next and see the explanation. But by the end, what is important here? That's my output, right? And so that's the result of that research. And so you have all that information. We add a lot of data here, like you have the risk high true or false. You have the prioritization 1 to 8, like, and if you remember the previous matrix, like the prioritization 1 to 4, like you have privilege escalation path, for example. And we have all that information. And so, but what I don't have here, I don't have the identity user, I don't have the permission set, I don't have the group, I don't have the account that this permission the account that this policy will give me access. And so what I need to do here, now I'm going to start the research itself. And how I add this to the flow. And I'm not a developer, so I need to pick some stuff ready. And so what I did here, I found a tool like last year, probably someone posted this link and I saved it, SSO Reporter. And so SSO Reporter will bring like, oh, we have this group that's related to this account name, and it uses this permission set that uses this policy. And so the other part of the tool will bring me like this policy is designed, and so but not everything together. And what I need to do from here, like we have groups. Most of the time we use groups. And so from this group, like how many users I have behind these groups, right? And I start to look at the Identity Center, and so I start to mapping. Like if you played already with Identity Center stuff, the CloudTrail events, or playing with the CLI, like it's all about user ID, account ID. There is no names related. You need to map by yourself. And what I need to do here, I need to map the user IDs with the usernames, right? And so I create the first check. So I map the group's ID with the group names. So the groups are mentioned like, oh, those are my members, but the members are the user IDs. So with this mapping, I could correlate and create the correlation. And so here on the correlation, I could have like, okay, like this account with this permission set has those users. And so like for one entry, maybe I could have like 10 entries, 100 entries. It depends on the number of users. And so we have the risk score analysis, that research, like the idea is that you run in each account of your organization, so you have all the policy arms with the permissions, especially if you are using like the CMPs, right, the customer managed policy. And so with that result, we map everything. So we put everything together. And as a result of that, we have like this very first matrix. And I have very nice users. That's my company, so I hired very well. And so we have Anna Maccabi, Chris Ferry, Houston Hopkins, Scott Piper is here too. and this is my lab. And so now I have like the username, the group, the permission set and which account it has access, the policy that is related to that, and now that metadata that I showed before, like risk high, risk medium, risk low, and the severity, the risk score here, the number of credential exposure, data exposure, infrastructure modification, privilege escalation, everything is here. And so with that, I could start to create some nice views, some nice outputs. And so, like, with 7 users that I have on my lab, like, I have like 152 combinations, 152 paths to get somewhere. That's where the very first part. Scott Piper's that has more combinations. He probably privileged escalations because it's not supposed to be that. And so we have Chris Ferris, we have me, like I'm the owner of the company, so I'm here with the good guys. And all that information. And so we have 5 accounts related with this Identity Center. We have like 4 policies being used here. Like it's just a lab, right? So it's not that big. And you have 4 permission sets. And so we have the permission sets here. And the combination, like for administrator access, we have like 48 attack paths related with those users. And database administrator, we only have like 12. And so we have the number of accounts, and here are the accounts that I have access with all the information that I collected there. And so we have a bunch of access to public servers, like we have like 39 paths to get to the public servers, and for the random craziness, we have just 4. And from here, like, and here you have the risk, like we have like more than 1K privileged escalation actions possibilities with all that combination. And so we have like some scary numbers, because if you are a huge environment, probably it will be bigger than this. So, and the nice here, I could like filter based on permission set. I want to see like this permission set we give access or what the risk for permission set, or account name, or username, or group name. So I choose like random craziness. That's the account that I have less information. And what I have here, like I have Patrick Sanders and Scott Piper. They have 2 combinations of access, and because we have like 2 permission sets, the administrator access and security audit CSPM. And so like we're using those 2 paths, and we have this risk related to this specific account. And if I drill down the paths here, so I have like Scott Piper, group with like permission set security audit, it will have access to random craziness using this policy. And the second is here with administrator access, random craziness. And that's the drill down for that. And so what I think like, okay, like I think if I add an extra mile, it would be cool, because since I have the paths, what I should use? Graph. So okay, I use graph. So how I use GraphDB? So I have no idea. So and so it was the first. And since I was not expecting to be accepted to speak here, since I was rejected in the first round, and I was like, okay, until like my next probably talk that I sent to conference in August, I have a bunch of time to learn that. And so, okay, you got accepted. So okay. So now I have a problem. And I tried to add, and so I say, okay, what's the most common use? Neo4j. Okay, let's use Neo4j. And I start to add things. And so that's the preview. They start the previous result for a general seal. So it's mess, is art, or it's a nightmare, right? I don't know exactly what is that. And I start to play around. So what I have, we have the user, the group, the permission set, the policy related, the risk related with this policy, and which account I have access. And with that, I start to do some graph and data. Like, so here I have the Kibana stuff, right, the Elasticsearch stuff, and the users. And so, for example, here, I have those Chris Ferris. It's belongs to Reinforce and for a cloudsec group. And it has like those combination paths, and so using the reinforced group, he has like 14 paths to get somewhere, right? And so here is some sample, the accounts that he has using the groups. And here just a drill down, like using those permission set. And so I have the permission set, like, okay, administrator access has eight paths, read only will have 8 paths, and so like database administrator just 2 paths, right? And so just a drill down about all the possibilities that Chris Ferris has, the 26 possibilities. And we have all the metadata here that I'm not showing because the screen will be too big. But, so for example, I could pick this. Chris Ferris, the group for cloudsec, administrator access to network. And so if you go there, you have this, he's come to here, and he get access to networking using the administrator that has privileged escalation, for example. And the nice part here, you could use like the GraphDB possibilities features like filtering, create some nice views, like, oh, this is a path with privileged escalation, so the circle could be bigger, could be red, this kind of things. I have no idea how to do that, but I know it's possible. So I just showing here like just to prove the point. And here, like the privilege escalation, I did this manually, right? I output to Neo4j and start to click and do my filter manually. So the privilege escalation path, like based on groups. And so those groups using those permission set has privilege escalation because they have those 2 policies that is prioritization 1. So they have like privilege escalation opportunities, and those privilege escalation opportunities, like administrators has all the privilege, and database I think is 3, but it's supposed to have the number here, but I forgot to expand. Right, so which users has those privileges are related with those privileges? So you start to get bigger from the left side, and so okay, and which account? And so that's what you have. Like we have all those users that are connected to different groups, that are connected to different permission sets, will have access to those accounts. And all those filter here that I did was based on the privilege escalation path, right? And so I pick like, just based on database administrator paths, I pick like Houston here and Patrick here. And so Houston, reinforced database administrator, default truth. And we have Patrick, Netflix, database administrator, public service. And so like the path like for Houston here, reinforced, database, and default truth. And so you have Patrick here, Netflix, database, and public service. And so you have a bunch of combination, a bunch of things that's pretty intensive. I was scared when I started to see that because when you figure out to say, we have problems, you have permissions, but when you create the visualization about that, like it's something that scares more, right? Especially like using the UX from AWS, that's terrible, right? You cannot see anything. So, all right, that's it. Thank you very much.